The first premise, which to my mind is extremely important, is the existence of the state of Jammu and Kashmir at one point of time in history and the formation of the Union of India at the same time in history. While as the India was being unionized, Jammu and Kashmir state by itself was not a part of India, neither it was a part of British India. Now we have it clear from the various statutes itself, whether it's Government of India Act or whether it's Indian Independence Act. That state of Jammu and Kashmir not being a part of the Union of India at that point of time, nor was a part of British India, it was altogether an independent state. It had its own king, it had its own country, and it had its own laws. The king at that point of time would run the affairs like any other king of any other princely state would do. And the king of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, I will not go back too much in the history, also had certain laws introduced way back in 1927 and 1932, which applied only to the people who are residing in that state. Or from time to time, as has happened in all countries of the world, there have been changes, democratization has taken place, and ultimately the Constitution Act of 1939 was also promulgated by the king. And the subsequent letter of the Governor General dated 27th of November 1947 has also been read, saying that we'll put it to the people of the state whether this instrument of accession is acceptable to them or not. These are facts of history. Having said that, thereafter, after 26th of October 1947 till 26th of January 1950, we have no other document evidencing as to the relationship of the state with the Union, except this instrument of accession. It said nothing except that the Constitution of India as may be applicable to the state would be acceptable to us. At that point of time, it was the successor of the king who was in chair, holding the position of the Maharaja. Ultimately, the decision of the Constituent Assembly was this, that they to have Article 370 for state of Jammu and Kashmir. To me, this decision appears to be the most significant and important because it answers several other questions. Why for Jammu and Kashmir? Why can't we remove it today in 2023? What is so great about Jammu and Kashmir? If it is a part of India, why should it have a separate constitution? Why should it have a separate flag? Why should the President of India have to concur or consult in the matter of application of laws? The first is, as I would submit for lots of consideration, this fundamental premise that the state of Jammu and Kashmir was different, Union of India was different. They agreed to join hands, but on certain conditions, which conditions came to be incorporated in terms of initial instrument accession, set later on by the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, as well as by the Constitution of India. That state of Jammu and Kashmir and Union of India agree so far as the integration. When I'm using this word integration, I mean in the sense of Article 1 of the Constitution of India, as well as Section 3 of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. While that stays, but I, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, should have the power to regulate my own affairs, accept what I have given to you. This is what I'm conditioned to that. So in instrument accession, I gave you something. I gave you defense, foreign affairs, security. So I gave it to you, make laws for it. But for remaining, I will make my own laws. Now, this was the position in 1950. If I put it differently, I had the ocean of, now later on today we call it now constitutional autonomy. Ocean of autonomy available to me in 1950.
I just wanted to point out, look, we have referred to the history, we have looked at the contours of the points.
The premises only.
But the fact of the matter is, ultimately, when the constitutional document is drafted and adopted and applied by the people of India, and we, the people of India, include the people of J&K, they're not separate from them.
Yes.
We are part, they will be, obviously, in people of India, there will be people from Punjab, there will be people from Gujarat, there will be people from J&K. Now, the only issue that may not really be, because we have moved with the passage of time. We have to move with the passage of time.
We have moved. That's what I'm saying.
We
I'm
have
coming to
moved.
that. Yes, I understand.
And
My
now
lord's
the
anxiety-
question today is,
Whether-
really speaking, it's the second part, which is Article 370, which is the main constitutional challenge before us. So let's confine ourselves to that.
Number one, my lords.
Yes.
Is-
My notes of your submissions this morning end with an ocean of autonomy, which I found very interesting a phrase. So I put it into inverted commas.
My lord, my first proposition for the lord's consideration is this, which I said earlier also, and somehow there were different views on that. That's after the execution instrument of accession. Where did the sovereignty go? That's a very important point we want to make.
Yes.
Where did the sovereignty go?
So how will you formulate it actually?
Yes, that's what's one of the issues involved in this case, because respondents.
So we'll say
argument
that
is
the
different.
instrument of accession did not result in a loss of sovereignty for whatever reason. Now, what are those reasons? Let's just formulate them.
Now, this constitution which we made for ourselves, what did it do? In section 3, it said, now we are calling our constitution section, whereas that of Indian constitution as articles. This is also another thing which has slipped into our language. Actually, my constitution also has articles. This section 3, my lords, straightway stated that it shall be an integral part. That's the same position as taken in Article 1, our instrument of accession. That's there. But what's important is that when it says we will redefine our constitutional relationship, which was read in the morning, it is in the preamble itself. Now, what would exactly mean redefining constitutional relationships? What was the earlier constitutional relationship which we had, and it had to be redefined. It had to be enlarged or reduced or whatever was to be done. So we have two different entities, the Union of India and a federating unit. Between them, this was the mechanism in terms of which they would redefine their constitutional relationship from time to time.
Not redefined, further.
Further define constitutional relationship.
Yes.
This has happened from time to time. That's why the CEOs explain that from time to time, there was further defining of the constitution. Prior to that, what we had was only instrument of accession, and then 1950 order, then 52 order, then ultimately they got merged in 1954 order. Subsequent COs are all amendments made in 54 order. They are not independent by themselves. Why it was so? Because 54 order had been initiated by the Constituent Assembly itself. Now, sir, as a result of these constitution application orders, what happens is that, which also found interesting, ocean of my constitutional autonomy was reduced to a pond by 4th of August 2019. Whatever it was, what was just it's a skeleton, I would not like to call it, but we still had. Now, what was that fundamentally I had on that date? Broadly, I have given that in writing also, broadly. I had my own permanent residence was one. I had the jobs reserved for the people who were permanent residents to only in the state government services. Number 3, nobody could acquire the land. These were 3 fundamental things which I had as on that date. Then, of course, we consider it to be our identity. This 370 was in the nature of the identity of the people of state of Jammu and Kashmir, culturally and otherwise also. Linguistically also, different languages were spoken in Ladakh, Ladakhi, in Jammu, Dogra, in Kashmir, Kashmiri. So over these 70 years, a certain kind of interaction, mixing up of these languages, cultures had taken place, and it had evolved itself into a certain kind of a culture, which is a complete harmonious relationship between these 3 regions. This was the effect from time to time, and nobody questioned these CEOs also for all these years, that why are you shrinking our constitutional autonomy? And I had raised an argument last time also. I said that by conceding that the Parliament of India will have power of legislation over me, I was indirectly reducing the power of my own legislature. Why can't Union of India accept that it's a kind of a federation in which there can be 2 constitutions? There are examples all over the world where there can be 2 constitutions. It is not this solitary case in the world. Why can't that fact be accepted? Third, when you accept that you are an integral part of it, yet you have this constitutional autonomy between total integration, total merger, and some space between the state and them for historical reasons, not of its own, for historical reasons. That's an important part of it. So therefore, there were some problems, some circumstances, rightly said by the respondents themselves, there were circumstances, situations in which it was felt by whom? By both the leaders of Union of India as well as the leaders of Jammu and Kashmir to provide this space for this autonomy to the people of the state. We're not going to the why this autonomy was given, but the fact of the constitutional position that this autonomy was given to us.